Yo, what's up, guys? You're with the PlanetFight Podcast. I'm Dip,
I'm Tuck.
and we're back, man. It's episode 13. It's been a while. We haven't recorded an episode since July, I believe. We are back, and what an event to come back to.
Yeah.
It is Conor McGregor. It doesn't get bigger than this in mixed martial arts. Without further ado, what do you think, man? It's Conor McGregor, Poirier. I know me and you have been talking about this for a while. We've been debating back and forth, so I'm glad it's finally here. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I'm real excited about it. I think the Conor we have in front of us now is one of the best Conors we've ever seen.
Right.
Also, Poirier is the best Poirier we've ever had too. With the game that Conor has, like Conor's game, he hasn't been forced to evolve the way Poirier has. His tried and true bread and butter, it's been very similar and has stayed the same. Where with Poirier, his game has changed almost completely. Like his
Right.
style of striking, it's drastically different. So that makes me really excited to watch this. Because we're at the very least, even if Conor KOs him in the first round, we're going to see something that looks a little bit different. Instead of Poirier like feeling power and moving straight back in the line to the fence, he's going to cut angles and do the things he needs to. I'm pretty excited. And then like Chandler Hooker is going to be absurd.
Oh my gosh, it's such a treat of a card, dude. Like you said, Dustin Poirier is like way different of a fighter. I think they've both matured throughout their careers. Like the big narrative between like the UFC embeddeds and the vlogs and things like that were kind of like growth. What is going to be different? And if the effects of the first fight had an effect on this fight. One thing I did want to ask you that I've been seeing a lot that people have been asking is, do you think the mental effects on the first fight are going to have a toll on Poirier's mindset for this fight?
They always will. I mean, you got KO'd, like that's
Right.
going to weigh on you a little bit. I don't think it's going to mess with him in a way that will impact the fight, but it messed with him in a sense that like that's something he definitely addressed.
Right.
You got to think about it. You got to sit down with yourself for a little bit and think about those things. I think he's going to show up just ready to go with that and with confidence in his chin at 155 pounds and confidence in his ability to take Conor's shots, so to speak.
Right.
You don't want to take that left hand if you have to. I think he feels he can survive through it. But like, there's a lot of things that make me excited for it. But if Poirier comes in scared of that hand, like he comes in scared because he remembers that knockout and remembers frankly the speed of it'll make for a boring fight. And I don't think he has that in him, if that makes sense. He will want to make an exciting fight because he knows who he is and that's who he wants to be. So even if he does have that memory in his head, I think it's just going to push him to be more aggressive, which would be bad for him. He can't be the killer he was in his youth. But
Right.
I don't think it's going to make him shell up at all. I think if anything, it'll give us just a better performance out of Conor.
Well, a lot of the mental warfare that took place in the first fight is not going on. And a lot of people credit that to why Dustin lost, because he got caught up in the mental warfare that Conor always gets all his opponents caught up in. And recently we haven't been seeing that out of Conor. We've been seeing like more focused, more sportsman-like Conor, where he's just kind of going with the flow of things, being respectful to his opponent. I think after this fight, we'll be able to really tell if that version of Conor is more dangerous or less dangerous. Because we saw him act like this during Cowboy, and we saw the result. He was still a killer. We'll see how focused he is and see how he can do against Poirier. Because like you said, Poirier is more battle tested than Conor, especially these past couple of years. Poirier's been through battles and wars with some of the top dogs, Dustin Gaethje, Khabib, guys like that. I'm excited, man. It's gonna be a good fight. Do you think Conor is gonna achieve his 60-second prediction?
No, I don't think so. 60 seconds is so short,
Right.
And he can't blitz Poirier like he did Cowboy. That'll just be that recklessness, because Poirier has turned himself into a really good counter striker, especially when someone closes really quickly and he can just counter his hooks, especially to the bottom. You can't rush him like that. And while Conor is really, really good with distancing pressure, I don't think it'd be in his best interest to come out there and like try to flying knee him within the first 5 seconds. I think he definitely has a really good chance at KOing him in the first, but first 60, that's so early. Like that's 10 seconds of that first round is them like jogging to the center and touching gloves. And
Right. Right. But one thing I do like about Conor, man, is a lot of people say, or the ref asks if he's ready, he comes out, and it's not there's rarely a feeling out process with Conor. It's more like he rushes you, sees how you react to his feints, his shots, and then he gets going. So what's your official prediction for this fight? I know you're pulling for Poirier.
Yeah, I am pulling for Poirier. My heart says Poirier 4th round KO, not like KO, but a
TKO.
Yeah, but my brain says McGregor in the second, early in the second. I think.
Gotcha.
I think McGregor's going to go back to his kicks in this, because it makes so much sense for a striker like Poirier, who his ranges, like McGregor has more range in his boxing and in his kicking. So why not just keep it in the kicking range where Poirier doesn't have many weapons? And you have McGregor has his fantastic teep to the body, his spinning back kick, and all of these things he uses to push people to the fence. And when they circle off to his lead hand, he overexerts and hits him with the left. Like it's part of his game plan that I don't know why you would change it for the Poirier fight. The idea is still the same. Like you're not fighting Dan Hooker, whose jab is at the same reach as your body kick, you know? Like you don't have to worry about those things. You can throw that long teep to the gut and feel safe. Like Poirier has an incredible lead land check hook that has come through in his last 3 fights with Max Holloway. He caught Khabib with it a little bit, and that's what sent Khabib and made Khabib reset in that 3rd round. But he black and blue Dan Hooker across the cage with it. So that's something for Conor to think about. Like that check hook is only an issue if he's throwing his left hand heavy and if he's throwing his jab heavy. Just so kick more. That it just makes sense. But if you're also kicking more, then Poirier has the options for calf kicks and things along those lines, which I think Poirier, it's become such a weapon for him, and just leg kicks as well. He needs to start those early.
Need to get Conor off his front foot.
Yeah, exactly. Or at least get him, because he throws so heavy over his foot with the left hand. If you can take away his ability to plant, even just a little bit on that, you're taking off at least confidence, you know? If Conor doesn't want to throw it as much, then you're not getting hit with it as much. And because he's going to hit you with that left hand. It's going to happen. How you react to it and what you do to work around it is really the idea here. Things I'm excited for is that Conor doesn't fight a lot of southpaws, and something he does so well is when he fights orthodox fighters, he always has fantastic foot place where he's off center and outside of their lead foot. With Dustin has the opportunity here to create angles that Conor's not used to with his southpaw stance. And I'm not sure who Conor's been training with in this offseason. I'm assuming he's brought in other southpaws, but we know for a fact he's more confident fighting orthodox fighters because he just abuses that foot placement. He'll work over, and then when they come back around, he'll step and throw his left. A fantastic strategy, and it's worked, and clearly it's worked really well for him. But there's not many southpaws in that lightweight division. So for Poirier, he has to keep that good angle of Conor in front of him and then working off of Conor's lead foot. If he doesn't, it just gets hairy for you. And if Conor starts driving him back, you can't go to the fence and circle off to your left, because that's what he wants. Because then Conor closes that distance and uses the cage to block you from wrapping around. And he just throws that left so long and so overextended because he feels comfortable doing so. Dustin, if you're out in the open, I'm circling right as much as I can. I'm going under his jab. I'm staying away from his power hand. But the second he takes me towards the fence, I'm rolling and circling to his left, because it just makes sense. You see where his game ends up. Brandao, Dustin, who else? Dennis Seaver. You can rattle off all these knockouts. Chad Mendez, where Conor pushed him to the fence. And when they circled to his offhand, he just cracks him with the left because he feels comfortable overextending.
Right.
So for Dustin, he has to keep these better angles than he did in the first fight. And I can see him doing that because he's gotten much better at these defensive postures and these defensive movements. I like Dustin's his cage that he does as well. But I think Conor's just going to adjust to that and start to work his body. Because, it's great. You're covering your head and everything with the shoulder, but it leaves your liver open, and Conor can crash a kick in there really well. And I think Dustin can get it done, though, if he does everything right. I think if he fights his best fight, he takes it. and
Yeah,
takes it.
I think that I love Dustin. You know, I'm a Conor McGregor fanboy, but at the same time, I love Dustin. I love his story, and like just seeing all the fights he's been through. Um, I mean, how can you not love him? But at the same time, I do not think he is going to outstrike Conor. I'm not saying he can't drop Conor, but even when Conor gets dropped, he recovers quickly. We've never seen him get dropped and just stay there. You know, he even when Khabib dropped him, he barely went down and he was back on his feet like that. I think Conor's stand up and boxing obviously is always going to be there. I don't think Dustin can get it done standing up. I do like the fourth round in submission though, because we do know Conor has some cardio problems in the past. Whether he's fixed that or not, I listened to an interview with his coach Kavanaugh, his is that his head coach? I think Kavanaugh is his head coach, but he said kind of like he doesn't really like that cardio thing because if you look at it, he went the longest with Khabib, right? And Nate Diaz, he went to war with him for how many rounds, and then came back in the fifth round with a new head of steam. So although we have seen him have that cardio problem, I do think evidence shows he's kind of gotten over that from his other fights. But it also it depends on how much energy he exerts. You know, with if he comes out and starts throwing like crazy, obviously he's going to be a little bit more tired. Overall, dude, I'm so excited. I can't wait. I mean, it's like once a year we get to see this. But did you also see Conor said he's trying to have the same run that he did in featherweight? He'd like to fight 7 times this year or something ridiculous like that.
I mean, if he can get it done, great. But like,
right, that's a tough division.
Yeah, and it's like he's essentially in a title eliminator right now, you know.
Right.
And if Khabib comes back, you're fighting for the title then, and having that in the mix slows everything down. 7 fights is absurd. Like if you want to have a title fight, especially depending on what happens between Chandler and Hooker, or if they throw Oliveira into the mix, like I think 3 times for this year is a little more
3 or 4 maybe. Yeah. Right.
7's insane. That's like a fight every 4.5.
Right, like Kevin Holland.
And you don't, frankly, you don't want to fight Khabib on 3 weeks' notice.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited for this. But moving on, we have like another basically main event fight as our co-main, in Chandler and Hooker. Chandler coming over from Bellator, obviously a champion from over there, and then I mean Hooker's been through some wars with some studs in the UFC. So that's one thing I saw. Hooker kind of gives himself the edge over Chandler. And a lot of guys say that that come from other promotions, from Bellator, they come to the UFC and things don't go as well as it did in other promotions. And they say that it's just different, just a different atmosphere. They have to have a different mindset for the UFC because it's a different stage. Do you think that kind of theory of coming to the UFC and being starstruck and things like that, do you think that'll affect Chandler, or do you think he'll be able to just handle it like business and carry on?
I think he'll handle it better than most because a lot of the people we've seen make these transitions have been like fighters from foreign companies. Like when you saw Pride come over, Pride was a wholly different thing. And when those fighters transitioned, they had a really hard time. One as well. It's just a different environment. But Chandler being from the US and training with so many like he trains with Kamaru Usman on a regular basis, Gilbert Burns, all these great UFC fighters, I think he's going to have a better handle on it. And he's been in corners for fighters in the UFC. Like he's experienced this. It's not like he's like been fighting for one and then comes to the UFC. And he's a little more used to it than a lot of them have been. I think he'll take it well. But I mean, talk about a fucking first test, an absolute animal. And you don't get him out of there easy. Like Edson Barboza had to absolutely batter his gut to get him out. Like you're not going to KO him. Like it's Edson Barboza landed like 27 switch kicks to his body. And then you look at the beating Hooker took against Poirier and some of the counter shots that Poirier was landing against the fence. You're like, this Chandler is an incredibly explosive fighter, but against Hooker, I don't know how much that's going to matter. No matter how explosive you are, if you hit Hooker, that motherfucker seems to be made of cement. Like,
right. I think that Chandler, obviously, he's going to work to the ground. He's going to work to his ground and pound game. But Hooker really just needs to keep it at length, make sure Chandler can't get in there, which is hard as hell because Chandler is like explosive and is like a little pit bull running at you. So that's what makes this exciting. I'm excited to see how they play it and their strategies and how Hooker plans on keeping Chandler from taking him to the mat. Because I think we all know if Chandler gets him to the mat, it's probably going to be rough for him. Even though he doesn't have a bad ground game. I mean, most guys in that division don't have a bad ground game like we've talked about before. But I think Chandler's is just a little bit a step above when it comes to being the top aggressor. And I think that I do have a slight prediction. I am taking Hooker. I like Chandler, but my prediction is that Hooker is going to catch him on a counter, whether it be on him coming in and him kneeing him. But Hooker's in his camps working on strikes for when guys shoot and things like that, just as Masvidal did for Askren. I'm not saying it's going to be that spectacular, but I mean, when you have a guy like that is going to work towards the ground, you have that inclination to practice those moves, and I think it'll be there because he's pretty slick and he's quick too with his strikes, and he trains with Israel in City Kickboxing, so they're known for their feints, their quickness, and footwork. So I'm excited, dude. What's your official prediction for that Chandler Hooker fight?
I think it gets stopped in between rounds, in between the third and the fourth. I think Hooker just jabs the mess out of him. And his jab is so strong.
Yeah, dude.
Because of the feints that City Kickboxing throws around. Hooker does not get enough credit for the striker that he is. He's incredible. You saw in the Paul Felder fight how strong his jab is and how solid it lands. He broke Paul's orbital. His face was and that was mostly from his jab. If he can step off to his right side and just keep pumping that thing out there and landing, just beating up Chandler's nose and then slamming and leg kicks when he can. And then like you're saying, his counter knee, if sometimes he throws the switch, sometimes he throws the regular. It's so quick and so solid. And he's just so long with it. You don't really see it coming until pushing his hip through and you're getting crushed.
Did you happen to see the press conferences?
Where he's talking about
any of it?
Yeah, a little bit of it.
But I mean, I just love the atmosphere of this whole event. I mean, it just seems like there's genuine respect between all the competitors. There's no trash talk. And it not only, they didn't need, one thing I thought was cool was they didn't need trash talk to sell this. It's just greatness. And the whole card is greatness. So it's like, we don't even need to hype this up. It's like, if you know anything about combat sports, you're going to be watching this.
But the thing that really sells it for me when you watch it, it still has that intensity,
Right.
Like when they square off, you're like, ooh, Jesus Christ. And it's not from them shit talking each other. It's from this like genuine appreciation for competition that all of these fighters seem to have. Like Conor and Poirier, even though like they're friendly now and like they talk and they're like, they have respect for each other. When they come face to face, there's an electricity there that you're like, this is.
Yeah. I like when Conor was like, you know what it is in there. He's like, you know what it is, and so do I.
I'm beyond excited for this. Just beyond excited.
But yeah, dude, I think that's it. We touched on those two big fights. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We are going to be dropping another episode post UFC 257. So after the card, it should be dropped like Sunday or Monday. So much. I'm Dip.
I'm Tuck.
And we're out.